Hi folks, it's Sonia with 2x2 Logoto and Kennels. I'm figuring this YouTube thing out. Now I'm sitting at my computer using the handy dandy little computer video to do my videos now. I had been doing it on my phone, which I think made some people nauseated trying to keep up because I moved the phone around. I am joining you today to talk to you about something really, really gross. Sorry to have to do this, folks, but I think y'all need this education. I'm a nurse, and I was a vet tech. I have a degree in animal science. Fourth generation farmer, so I know a thing or two about this topic. And sorry to gross y'all out, but we're going to talk about worms. Worms. Disgusting worms. Parasites. Another polite thing to call it. Parasites. All dogs, all birds, critters, mammals, if you have worm blood, you're at risk for having worms. You may have them anyway and not know. It's true. So you've heard about stowaways on ships. They slyly sneak on board and find a secret place where they can live and steal food. Then they eventually jump ship because they made it to wherever they needed to go. Well, parasites are kind of like stowaways. They get in or on a host, and they move to where they want to be, gain nourishment, warmth, and other amenities, and they or their offspring leave the host to find another. In a broad sense, a parasitic relationship is defined as one in which the organism lives in or on the host, and they can cause the host harm. There's some that don't cause any harm, but not very many. And then there's different types of relationships between the host and a particular species of worms. And we're going to talk about the different species, but first I'm going to give you an overview about parasites. Some help each other, some harm each other, and even kill the other. They can kill the host. So there's mutualism. In a relationship called mutualism, both organisms benefit. I can think of one in particular, some like a whale may have barnacles attached to it, may have fish, other small fish attached to it, and they clean off the outside of the whale. They keep it clean. So the parasite gets a free ride and an easy meal, and the whale gets the outside of their body cleaned off by this parasite. Commensalism as another type of relationship between the host and the parasite. One organism benefits and the other neither benefits nor is harmed. So the first is mutualism, where both benefit. This one, only the parasite benefits, but it's kind of like a hitchhiker. So you picked up a hitchhiker on the highway and they didn't axe murder you, and you dropped them off. They gave you $10, maybe they didn't. But they didn't cause you any harm, but they benefited from getting from point A to point B. Now, if they did give you $10, then that would have been mutualism. If they didn't give you $10, then that's commensalism. Hope that makes sense. The next one is predator-prey, and this is the one where 90% of our parasites land. This is where we get to the win-lose relationship. In a predator-prey relationship, one organism quickly kills the other, or slowly kills the other, or maybe not kills the other, but causes harm. Either way, it's a win-lose relationship. Examples would be the spider capturing a fly, the cat catching the mouse, the fisherman catching the trout, and parasites in our animals. So the definition of parasite depends on who you ask. If you ask the parasite, I don't think they're going to say anything bad about themselves. Anyway, we're going to use the definition of the win-lose situation for our following discussions. And although the parasite may harm the host, it does not usually kill the host, or it would eventually run out of some place to live. So we're speaking of harmful but not fatal, although there are some fatal parasites. So next, we'll talk a little bit about the life cycle and transmission of parasites, and I need to talk about each parasite as we go along here. There's two different types of life cycle. There's a direct life cycle, the immature form of the parasite, which infects the host, the same host it came from. For instance, an adult parasite lives in the host's intestine or in their liver, lays eggs which are passed into the stool, and the eggs can infect the same or similar host. So, the mother dog, she's pregnant, she has stress hormones that cause the parasites to, the eggs that have been laid to bloom, and that reinfects the host and then transmits through either stool or through milk, usually through breast milk. So that's how puppies can get parasites. We'll talk more about that in a minute. But anyway, so I'm going to talk about the most common canines infesting worms. The first one is roundworms. I'm looking down here at my notes. Toxicara canis. It's a worm that's most often found in puppies. It causes diarrhea and vomiting, causes a potbelly appearance, not a roly-poly puppy appearance, but the abdomen looks distended and full. It can be transmitted to humans, so this is why I freak out at this discussion and why I don't do parasites. I just don't. That's not to say that and any breeder who tells you that they haven't had a parasite at some point isn't telling the truth, because they're everywhere. They're in our water, they're in our soil, they're everywhere. And then we have dogs, especially breeders who are importing dogs. We have dogs. All the dogs have a parasite load in them. It's just how far back we've beaten that parasite load with medications, like preventative medications that we give every month. Say Interceptor. We have to give something that prevents something that's actually there. Prevention means it stops it, halts it, beats it back with a stick. If we didn't have parasites that we had to prevent, there'd be no need for breeders to worm on a regular basis, or there'd be no reason for us to give monthly anti-parasitic medication. There'd also be no need for fecals to be done at the vet. I hope I'm making sense there. So, all right. The symptoms of roundworms can be detected in feces or vomit of the infected dog. Roundworms can be contracted from the carcasses of rodents who carry the parasite, so don't let your dogs eat a dead squirrel or a dead rabbit or a dead mouse. It comes from dirt that can contain eggs, and 76% of soil samples taken in the south and 62% of soil samples taken up north, now this is south of the Mason-Dixon line, north of the Mason-Dixon line, have evidence of parasitic eggs of some sort. It can also come from the milk of the mother, or in utero. It can be transferred in utero. So deworming the mothers is critical before, and we have a protocol that we use right before the mothers deliver puppies. We administer anti-parasitic medication for several days in a row, and then we have a protocol, excuse me, whereby we are giving our puppies some sort of antiparasitic medicine weeks 2 through about 7. Sometime around week 6 or 7, we're checking fecals the whole time. But if we've had a negative fecal at week 6 or 7, then we don't treat any longer. We just treat by fecal after that point. And the reason for that is that at 6 through 12 weeks, there are certain immunities developed to certain parasitic infestations. And then weeks 12 through about 30, there are other immunities being developed against parasitic infestations. So your puppies develop a natural immunity as long as they're healthy. They've been vaccinated appropriately. They have been, and I'm going to do a vaccine video too. They've been vaccinated appropriately, and they have had a healthy antiparasitic program up to the point of this immunity being developed, and they're on a good nutritional diet, so their nutritional needs are being met. For us, we also keep puppies inside because if they're out playing in the dirt, and we live on a farm, but even if you didn't live on a farm, if you live in a neighborhood where there's grass and dirt and dew in the morning on the grass and mud because it rained or didn't rain, depending on where you live, your soil and your grass have parasites. So we don't let our puppies outside for the first time until their 7th week, and we have clearance from our veterinarian. So that's just a little bit about that. So then we talked about roundworms. The treatment, prevention is to treat mothers with antiparasitic medication, treat puppies from weeks 2 through 9, and then also prevention is keeping your dog on antiparasitic medication the rest of its life. We do it on the 1st of the month, and we use Interceptor. I'll explain why we use Interceptor here in a little bit. So that's roundworms, but fenbendazole can treat roundworms, and then of course Interceptor, but we don't use Interceptor until the puppies are at least 8 weeks old, so we have to use fenbendazole. Then you have whipworms. This is a worm that's ingested by drinking water that contains the whipworm eggs. It inhabits the lower intestine of a dog or cat and survives on the blood of its host. Nasty. Symptoms, diarrhea, loss of weight, loss of appetite. Several fecal exams are necessary as the females lay just a few eggs, and the eggs are not always present in the stool. And another thing, eggs can lay dormant in the feces for 3 months until they're infectious. So to prevent infection, you need to keep your yard free of poop. Even if you have one dog, I suggest at least 2 to 3 times weekly going through, and or every time your dog relieves themselves in your yard, and they've got those little leashes that have the little stool bags on them. They can clip on there. You can carry them in your pocket, but it's just easier to have it on the dog's leash, and that way you can clean it up right then. If you let your dog out in a fenced-in area, at least 2 to 3 times a week you need to be de-pooping your yard. That prevents it, because the whipworms can infiltrate the soil, and and then the soil has to be replaced, which is, I can't imagine. So parental pamawate and fenbendazole, as well as Interceptor, take care of whipworms, and reputable breeders know the worming schedule that each puppy should be on. Hookworms are found in dogs, cats, and people. An intestinal dwelling worm. The teeth of this attach to the intestinal wall, and feeds on the host's blood. Nasty. Hookworms are actually very easily transmitted through food, water, sometimes through the mother's uterus, and most definitely through the milk. Symptoms: the coat could appear dull, vomiting, diarrhea, anemia, obviously because of blood loss and weight loss. Eggs are present in the feces of the host. Larva infests the soil, but it's quickly killed by extremely hot or extremely cold weather. You can use, again, fenbendazole. It's also known as Safeguard or Panicure. I do not suggest that anyone attempts to treat their puppy or dog on their own except through your veterinarian's recommendation. And my information here, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not a veterinarian. I'm a nurse and a vet tech, so I can give knowledge, but I can't make any diagnoses. All right, so we've talked about roundworms, whipworms, hookworms. Let's talk about tapeworms, and then we'll talk about heartworms. Oh, and Giardia. I'll talk about Giardia too. All right, let me talk about Giardia now, actually. Giardia is another another parasite that shows up in the feces of the host when you do a fecal. And if anybody didn't know what a fecal was, that is, you take a sample to your veterinarian, and they do a smear of it on a slide with a special solution. They let it set up, then they look at it under a microscope, and they count the number of parasite eggs. And there's a little chart that we use. If you've been in this industry long enough, you've got it memorized, what each parasite egg looks like. And then from there we can determine how to treat. So, like I said, weeks 2 through about 6, I'm treating across the board the same way every time. Marquis, which is for coccidia. Oh, I need to talk about coccidia too. Coccidia, then weeks 2, fenbendazole. Week 3 is parental. 4 is fenbendazole. 5 is parental. Week 6 is fenbendazole. And then week 7 we do a fecal, make sure that we've successfully prevented a parasite infestation. Successful prevention is what all reputable breeders do. You cannot be parasite free without the use of either herbal supplements or prescription medication. Some of these are over the counter, but in general, prescription medication. So you can only prevent. You cannot ever completely get rid of them because, well, we live in a fallen world, and our environment, the soil, the water. Anyway, so back to Giardia. Giardia is an intestinal parasite. It is in the water, transmitted in the water, so dirty, nasty water. Sometimes it doesn't even have to be dirty, nasty. It could look like a nice, fresh, flowing stream. Temperature extremes don't really seem to kill this. It lives in the soil too. So, prevention. The nice thing about Giardia is that puppies, it's easily prevented by maintaining a clean environment in which your young puppies can be in, which we do, and maintaining a clean water source 24/7, which we do. It's hard to do because we have Lagodo who insist on dock diving in their water, and sometimes I have some of them who play in their water, so some litters have to use big rabbit water bottles with a little nozzle that they drink from, but they figure that out. Usually within about the first 2 weeks of life, they're up toddling around and they're figuring out that water bottle. So Anyway, prevention. But the good news about Giardia is that puppies, usually around the 16 to 25-week age, develop immunity. Most of your adult dogs have an immunity unless they have not maintained a proper nutrition and I'm talking foundational. You need to have that good foundation from the beginning. So if you don't have that, your animal could be at risk. If you had some kind of immunity challenging issue at birth, like a staph infection or maybe even something we vaccinate for, but the puppies got it anyway, or they weren't properly vaccinated and got something. So those things can challenge the immune system. Lack of proper nutrition, lack of proper vaccine schedule, lack of gut health, and lack of clean environments or something that challenges the immune system can cause adults to develop or pick up Giardia. Same with coccidia. Coccidia is one of those things that we inherited from Europe. We had a couple of dogs that came into the country with it. And I'm not judging anyone. I'm not blaming anyone. They came in from another country. So anyway, we treated them and no longer have that as an issue, but because it has been on our property, and actually my livestock vet believes that it was on our property before because it's a farm, and he also thinks that it is very prevalent in the soil no matter farm or neighborhood. So coccidia, again, it's one of those intestinal parasites, and it can be killed by using something called marquis. Now, breeders used to use Albon, and this is a perfect example of what happens when a medication stops working because of overuse. So coccidia in America is almost resistant to Albon. And why bother anymore? So we use a product called Marquis, Marquis. We get it from our vet, and it's a one-time dose given at 2 weeks of age, and it prevents it. We never have coccidia. So puppies can have stress bloom. That means that, like all living animals, they have a parasite load laying dormant in their body in some form or fashion. And just name it off the top of your head, and it's possible. Humans, birds, rodents, mammals, fish can have a parasite load that lays dormant, and then during a period of stress, the parasite can have what's called a bloom. The eggs can hatch, the larva can form, the worms can develop, and then you've got a problem. So staying healthy, maintaining proper nutrition, and then prevention. So that's it about coccidia, I think. Tapeworms. Let's talk about tapeworms. Tapeworms live in the intestines of mammals. Again, it's an intestinal parasite. They're nasty. They can grow really long. They're segmented. They have a head that's covered in suction cups. It attaches to the intestinal wall. Blood sucking, another blood sucker. Symptoms: abdominal discomfort, diarrhea. Sometimes all you'll see is a little rice-like egg in the animal's stool. Don't freak out. Well, you've got two problems here. Your pet has tapeworms, but your pet also has fleas. Fleas are carriers of tapeworms, and so you have to prevent fleas in order to prevent tapeworms. Praziquantel, which is Droncit, is the treatment for tapeworms. Drugs can't be administered. This drug can't be administered to a pregnant female. I disappeared for a minute. Can't be administered to a pregnant female or puppies under 7 weeks of age. I hope y'all aren't laughing at me while I'm doing these YouTube videos, because this technology has slightly outpaced me. My son's helped me figure most of this out. 17 years old, bless him, and he laughs. Oh, Mom. But I've got my glasses on, and I'm doing it. Hey, at least I cleaned up well today. Anyway, back to tapeworms. So you have to prevent fleas. In the year 2018, nobody should be dealing with fleas because there's so many things on the market to prevent this. There's things from essential oils and diatomaceous earth and borax to over-the-counter things like Frontline Plus or Frontline Gold or Biospot, and then things that you can get at the vet by prescription like Brevecto or NexGard. Please give this every month. I don't care if you live in the Arctic tundra. You are going into a house with your dog that is warm enough to be hospitable to fleas. So you go to the pet store and somebody had fleas because they had a cat that they found someplace. They brought the cat in there. Or the vet, they brought something in, a stray, has fleas, jumps on you in your pant leg because you're nice and toasty. You come home, the flea jumps off, and then you've got a problem. Because it doesn't really like you. I mean, it'll bite you if there's nothing left to bite because it's not going to die. But it'll look for your pet, which would be the most hospitable host. And then you've got a problem. And getting rid of fleas in your house, listen, folks, you can treat your dog for fleas, but if you already have a flea infestation in your house, until you go through that whole 45 to 48 day life cycle of the flea eggs, then you haven't accomplished anything. You're just putting an expensive topical or oral prevention on your pet in an environment that, I mean, it's kind of like trying to use a teacup to catch water from a fire hydrant. So you have to bomb the house, and I've been doing this. I'm almost 50 years old. I've worked in vet clinics since I was 10 years old. I've seen people try to do this another way, and it just doesn't work. So if you have a flea infestation, you have to bomb your house. You have to take your dog off premise and give it a flea bath. You have to wait 3 days. You and your pet can be back in the home, but you have to wait 3 days after the flea bath to administer either an oral or a topical flea medication. And a couple of things that we do, if we have a dog come in for breeding or a dog coming to visit us, Capstar, we'll use, I was going to get up and get it and show it to you, but I'm not going to leave the screen. We use Capstar. Everybody who comes in to visit for breeding, or a new dog, or a puppy for grooming, they get a Capstar, and that causes any flea on them to immediately die, cease to exist, and die. So, and then of course we're using diatomaceous earth and essential oils in their crates and bedding, and you know, it's been 20 plus years since I had a flea. We sent a dog to a dog show who came home, gave it Capstar on the way home, and noticed a dead flea, and I freaked out. Took him straight to the vet for a flea bath, left him overnight at the vet, and never saw another flea. But I'm what you'd call anal retentive about parasites and fleas. I'm not doing it. So, if you have tapeworms, you have fleas, and you have to treat for the flea infestation. You balm your house, you bathe your dog, you Capstar your dog, and then you give either your oral or your topical. And like I said, north or south of Mason-Dixon line, I don't care. You need to be on this every month because we live in nice, toasty, warm houses, and fleas find that hospitable. Fleas don't like dry, humid. They don't like sunshine. So dark places like under your bed, under your couch, in your seat cushions, they'll hide out there. They'll lay eggs. And again, that whole cycle is what you're trying to prevent. So now let's talk about heartworms. You heard me mention the word Interceptor as a prescription medication that can be given to treat, prevent all of these other rounds, whips, hooks, Giardia, and coccidia. Interceptor only treats hooks, rounds, whips, and heartworms. So Giardia and coccidia have to be treated by another means. But your dogs were born in a healthy environment here, and we trust that they'll maintain the proper nutrition and the long-term health. So you shouldn't ever have a problem with Giardia or coccidia. Heartworms. It's a spaghetti-like worm that infests the heart and organ of an unprotected dog. Plants hundreds of eggs that travel in the bloodstream until they reach the heart, lungs, and usually the heart and lungs. They can go in other organs, but usually heart and lungs. Left untreated, the worms can clog the heart until a seemingly healthy dog dies. Pretty suddenly, actually. Dry chronic cough will ensue, accompanied by exhaustion and exertion seen during activity. The heartworms are transmitted by mosquitoes. So using essential oils on your pet when you're going to spend any length of time outside is wise. Even dogs that live in the house all the time get heartworm. We had a dog that was placed in a home, and the family didn't, for whatever reason, treat monthly for heartworm. We got the dog back, and the dog has heartworm. It's heartbreaking. Now, it's entirely treatable and entirely preventable and recoverable. But in the year 2018, when we have the science and technology to prevent these things, let's do it. And monthly heartworm prevention is much cheaper than heartworm. I'm sorry, I said that. Heartworm prevention is much cheaper than heartworm treatment. Heartworm treatment's between $400 and $800, depending on what part of the country you're in. And it's a pain in the neck for the dog to go through that treatment, to be honest. So, anyway, 40 plus years of being around dogs, and I've only ever seen dogs with heartworms in the clinic setting that weren't mine, and I get a dog back from someone and it has heartworm. It's heartbreaking. So you can bet that this is going to be my bandwagon soapbox for a while. Give your dogs their heartworm treatment every month. Do it on the 1st. Here in our home, we change our air filters. We add our stuff to our dishwasher, and we treat everybody for fleas and ticks and heartworms every month. Going on 30 years. So, now, here is the important thing to know about heartworms. Dirofilaria immitis. Just heartworm. You can say just heartworm. The heartworm is transmitted by a flea. You give Interceptor. Why do you give Interceptor? We have a breed, the Australian Shepherd. I've had it for over 30 years. And within that group, the herding group, dogs that are bred for the purpose of herding, you got German Shepherds, Collies, Belgian Malinois, Australian Shepherds, a host of other breeds. They have a gene that's been identified called the MDR1 gene. MDR1. M is in Mary, D is in Doctor, R is in Robert, 1. MDR1. It's a simple cheek swab or a blood test that can be sent off to the University of Missouri to identify whether your particular herding dog has that gene. But that gene causes herding breeds, particularly collies, Australian Shepherds, to be susceptible to certain medications causing harm. They're sensitive to, even to the point of fatality. So one of those particular drugs that they are sensitive to, among anesthesia, Remedal, which is for inflammation. The big one is ivermectin. I-V-O-M-E-C-T-I-N. Ivermectin. It is a medication that is used to prevent parasites in large animals, and it used to be used across the board in canines. And HeartGuard is one of the things that has it in it. There's a couple others. I've lost count or the name. I didn't commit to long-term memory because I don't use it. HeartGuard is one of them, though. Has this ivermectin in it, and it can cause serious issues for for herding dogs, namely collies, Australian Shepherds. So my first encounter with this was with the Australian Shepherd. So I already had this on my radar. Hey, there are certain dogs that are sensitive to certain medications, just like humans. I mean, I'm allergic to certain kinds of steroids. I cannot take them. I have an allergic reaction. My son can't take penicillin. He's allergic to it. Kind of the same thing. Aussies, collies can't take this. Certain other herding dogs can't take these medications. So I say all this to bring up my very, very critical, it's even in my contract point here. About 10 years ago, when we first imported ours and had the first couple of litters, we have had 3 puppies who reacted to HeartGuard, Trifexis, and TriHeart. They had neurological reactions. These are puppies that we had placed in homes, and we require everybody to be on heartworm prevention. We mentioned that we use Interceptor because I'm not using something else on my Lagodo that my Australian Shepherds can't take. So we didn't have anything else on hand to give. So all our puppies went home, started on Interceptor, and so we didn't have any problems. Well, excuse me. 3 puppies, about 9 years ago, had these neurological issues. So we began to communicate with other breeders, our vet. I called the University of Missouri. They said it's possible. You know, the Lagotto is an ancient precursor breed, so it's very possible. Since then, there have been a multitude of other puppies who have showed sensitivity, adults who've shown sensitivity to this, including seizures, not junior epilepsy seizures, but medication-induced. So none of ours have had that. They just had some neurological, like a little ataxia, like they were stumbling around a little bit. They were lethargic. They were slobbering, shaking. So since that time, like I said, it has been discovered that there is something here. And the university, UC Davis is, I believe, picking this research up. University of Missouri is assisting because they already have a foundational understanding of this with the MDR1 gene, with the herding breeds. So we are investigating this further, but in the meantime, no Lagotto should take anything but Interceptor or Sentinel. That is, that's where we've landed. So, that is my talk on parasites. I'm going to address ticks in a later video when we talk about vaccines, because I want to talk about Lyme's disease in dogs, so we'll address ticks then. In the meantime, what you need to know about ticks is the same thing you need to know about fleas. Prevent them. Frontline Plus or Frontline Gold will prevent fleas and ticks, and there's a couple other products. If you have any questions before your puppy comes home, after your puppy comes home, or you've got an adult and you have questions, there's always new products coming on the market. Please reach out to us. You can call me or text me at 770-608-1119. You can email me at 2x2lagotto@comcast.net. Be sure to visit our Facebook page under 2x2 Lagotto, and our website 2x2lagotto.com. And please don't forget to like, share, view, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks, and be blessed. Have a great day.